Hello, my name's Julie and this is Stamp with Julie Baum. On today's episode of Simply Saturday, I'm going to show you a card with these beautiful colors and a very simple layout that you will want to copy or be inspired and change it up a little bit and do it your way. So I am beginning with a card base, and this is thick white cardstock. So this is a little bit heavier than our regular basic white cardstock. I like to use the thick weight when I'm using it for my actual card base. So this piece is 5.5 inches by 11.5 inches, and I have already scored it here at 4.25 for my fold. Then I have a couple of other pieces of cardstock here. My Berry Burst piece is actually a size that I show in my layering templates. So if you don't already have a pack of my layering templates, be sure and message me so that we can connect and I can get some of these into your hand. So this next piece of Berry Burst is actually my layering template number 2. And the white piece that's going to go on top is my layering template number 3. Then I went ahead and pre-cut, in this case punched, but you could do die cut circles or punched circles, a Berry Burst circle and a slightly smaller, I think this white one is a 2-inch circle. This one is a little bit larger, and these are going to go together like so. Now, as far as your designer series paper, you need 4 squares. Now, I did these with square dies from Stylish Shapes, but you could also just cut your paper into squares. You don't have to die cut them. So you're going to want 2 squares that are about 1.5 inch square, and you're going to want 2 squares that are just about 1 inch square. So again, I used square dies from Stylish Shapes. So let's put the card together. All right, the first thing that I'm going to do is attach my Berry Burst layer to the card base. I'm using the green glue or the multi-purpose liquid glue. I'm going to lay this on here and center it onto my thick white cardstock base. All right, the next step is I'm going to go ahead and attach my white layer as well. I'm not doing any stamping on this, so it doesn't, there's no risk to going ahead and getting it glued on right now. If I was going to do some stamping on it, I would stamp first before gluing. All right, there's our layered backgrounds for the front of the card. Now we're going to put our squares on, and first I'm just going to lay them down with what I call a dry fit. Let's just lay it out, see how it looks, and that way we have time to move it around before we do any adding of glue. So let's just play with our layout here. I know I want a big one and a small one. I'm kind of looking at the space here on the side as well as the space between, and we will just make it look good. I'm not really using an exact measurement. All right, let's try that, and then we'll bring the other large square in and the small one. And again, I'm just playing with position. For the most part, I'm kind of looking to see that the space between here, the space between here and here is pretty even. This is going to be a bigger gap, and that's okay. And I'm looking at the sides. This is a little bit farther away from the white edge, but this one's a little closer, so it kind of balances it out, and the same here. So I'm going to probably stick to that layout. And what I'm going to do is leave the pieces in place, leave 3 of them in place while I glue on the one. Now, just to give you a sneak peek of where we're headed, this circle is going to land right in the middle and just kind of bring the focus to the center with all those squares peeking out from behind. So I'm going to leave these 3 in place, and go ahead and get this one glued on. If you were really nervous about this part and maybe more particular than I am being, you could definitely do your dry fit and then mark things with a pencil so that if anything was to, go off, you could go back to your pencil marks and see where you had placed those. All right, now let's try to get this one into place. I'm actually going to give you 2 cards today. So this one goes together super fast, the other one as well, and we're going to do a second card with this 4 square idea, just with a different layout. Okay, those 2 are in place. I think I'll leave that one and get this one into place because it's easy for me to line up that spacing. And then the 4th one, I honestly don't think you can go too terribly wrong in laying these out. So don't be afraid to just go for it once you kind of have in mind where you're going to put your pieces. The other thing that's helping me is I know that I want this square kind of centered underneath that square. So you've got a couple little checks and balances as you go. All right, there's our pieces all in place. This one is going to go here, and you can see that that's going to look nicely with all those little corners peeking out. Let's do our stamping. We're just going to stamp on here, and I pulled a stamp from this stamp set, which is called Charming Sentiments. Now, at the time of this recording, this one has already been shown on the last chance list. So this is going to be going away. April of 2023 is the last opportunity that you'll have to buy this stamp set and its coordinating dies. It's full of wonderful sentiments. So if this is one that you have had kind of on your wish list and haven't bought yet, don't hesitate, because once this is sold out, it will be gone forever. And also at the end of April, it will be gone forever no matter what. All right, so I'm using the stamp that says Super Fantastic Mega News. So obviously this would be to send to someone kind of as a congratulations to either something that they've done or some good news that has come their way. And because I'm stamping this stamp for the first time today, I'm just going to do a practice on my scratch paper. Just remind myself if there's anything I need to be aware of. Something that looks crooked or something that doesn't ink up well, but that came out just fine. So we're going to go ahead and stamp right on the center of our circle. Now, if you want to, you could stamp on a scrap of white, then put your die or your punch around it. That way you're sure to get the words centered. But for today, I just went ahead and stamped on the circle. Okay, I'm going to attach this to that berry burst circle. I'm going to add just a couple of gems. So I grabbed the Tinsel Gems 3-pack, and I think I'm looking at the colors. I'm thinking I'll use kind of this fresh freesia color, although that's super pretty too. Any of them would work. So I'm going to take this one and stick it down here. My words are a little high, so I'm going to kind of fill in that space with a gem and maybe a second one over here. Usually I do 3 or 5 gems or sequins. I think that this is going to work with just 2. I like how it looks, so I'm going to go with it. And I'm just going to put this on with some Stampin' Dimensionals, and we will be done. And then I'll move on to the second card for today. Because this one was so truly fast and easy, we're just going to put together a second card with a different layout. So today is a twofer. All right, get this nice and straight, get this nice and straight and centered, and there we have a fun and easy layout. I love that you could substitute any papers here. Just about anything would work and look really beautiful. All right, there is card number 1. Now let's go with card number 2. It is a similar paper, and I didn't tell you what designer series paper this is. This is called Masterfully Made. It is also a designer series paper that is going to go away. So you have the rest of April to look at purchasing this paper before it's gone. All right, so for the next card, I have also the same 4 squares like we talked about. I chose a different color of paper from that pack, but it's a similar print. So there's the 2 large squares, the 2 small squares. I begin with a thick card base instead of this way. Let's go ahead and turn and go this way. And then I have a regular basic white piece of cardstock, and this is cut at my cutting templates. This is a size 2. And this is going to go on here, but I'm going to actually put that on at the very end. So the only other piece I have is a piece of fresh freesia, which looks beautiful with that paper. This is 3/4 of an inch, and it's going to go the entire length of this piece, which is 5 1/4. Now, my strip is a little long right now, which I like to do sometimes, because I'll show you. Once I glue it on, I can get it nice and straight. There'll be a little bit of overhang on the sides, and then I can just trim that off. And honestly, sometimes it's easier to do that than to have this piece cut exactly the same size as that one and have it go edge to edge without any gap or difference. Sometimes that's hard to do. It shouldn't be if it's cut the same size, but it ends up just happening. All right, this needs to come up a little. Okay, so I've got this roughly centered top to bottom. It could be a little bit higher if you want. You'll see when we put the squares on. You can decide if you want it right in the middle or a little nudge higher. Okay, so that's attached nice and straight. It's going to be flush because now I'm just going to take my scissors and cut that teeny bit of extra overhang off. Okay, there we go. Now to our squares. And this time we'll do, again, a dry fit. So I know this is going to go very, very close to that left edge. And then a small one. So these are going to be close together. And then another large one and a small one. So let's see if just working our way across. Sometimes working out towards the center is best, but I'm going to go ahead and keep working left to right and see how it looks, because again, we've not put any glue on it, so we have the ability to move these around. The reason I'm turning this, I don't know if you can tell, but there's actually a little bit of script in the background, and I'm just trying to make sure that the script isn't upside down. Okay, you can see I ran out of a little bit of space, so I'm going to have to move everything a teeny bit over and closer to each other. So that one's just going to have a hair of the fresh freesia showing. This one's going to come closer. This one, let's slide over. And is that enough? Almost. Okay, so your squares are practically going to be touching. All right, but that fresh freesia just barely shows, and it's also giving me a little bit of an alignment assistance as I'm putting my pieces on. Okay, so we're going to go with that. I'm actually going to bring this one down. Now, as you're looking at it, you can see, let's bring that one down a little, and maybe this one, I don't know, I'm kind of liking it. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to leave a couple in place while I get one glued on. Let's start with this one because the top of it is lining up with that, so it's really easy to see. Okay, first one's in place. I think I'll go ahead and put this one in place next. It's kind of fun just doing these squares. Again, you could just pull out a number of designs of paper and get a totally different look or mood. Okay, now on this one, we are not using the circles like on the first card. We're going to use our words stamp a little bit differently. Okay, one more. So I don't have to worry about where that circle is going to go. We're just going to stamp in this space right here. Okay, and that one is going to end up lower than that square. So way over to the edge, just a hint of that fresh freesia strip sticking out or peeking out in between, like so. Okay, we've got all of our pieces in place. Next, we're going to stamp. I chose a stamp from the same stamp set. Again, it's full of great sayings, and this time I'm just using a thank you stamp. And I'm going to use Fresh Freesia ink. This was sitting on the block really crooked, so I want to straighten that out. And ink this one up. We're going to put our stamp right here under that big square. And a couple of gems. I'm kind of thinking I'm going to use one of the green. I think this is supposed to be Lost Lagoon. And we'll start with a small one. He doesn't want to get picked up. Oh yeah, I love that color. I am going to do 3 this time, so I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3. So I'll use a big one here and a small one. I've got options. Yeah, I'm just going to go with that. All right. Once again, we used the gems from the Tinsel Gems 3-pack. Now this layer, let's put some dimensionals on the back of it. That's going to give it a very nice finish. It's a pretty large panel that we're putting on here. So where a smaller piece, you might be okay with just 4 dimensionals. I'm going to go ahead and use more on this because I don't want it to sag in the middle. So I am going to be generous with my dimensionals on this card. All right, you can see that this sheet is used up, but I like to use every bit of it. So I'm going to cut like that. There's another one. And I want one right in the middle as well to keep that middle part from sagging. There we have it. Okay, so a quick peel, peel, peel. I like the look of a white panel on a white card. I just think it, I don't know, it kind of looks classy, but having that panel raised just gives it, well, what it does is it creates a natural shadow between the raised piece and the card base itself. And so it's a very beautiful look. All right, I love that. I love how the fresh freesia is just peeking out a teeny bit here. It's hardly noticeable, but it's there. And I'm pressing down each of those dimensionals that we used all over the place. And there is our very lovely thank you note. Again, we did everything with squares today. 2 large squares, 2 small squares, and just did a different layout for each. I think this is a fun card. I would love to hear your thoughts about it, especially if you are going to try it and cut those squares and create a card just like I did today. I really appreciate your comments. I thank you for watching today. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing that. And until next time, happy stamping.